If Solid Snake left footprints, this game would have followed in them. A sequel to arguably the greatest game for the original PlayStation, this is what the evolution of tactical espionage action looks like. And when tactical espionage action evolves, you get an even better Snake, and you get an even better Metal Gear. Released for the PlayStation 2 in 2001, Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of Liberty was received with praise from fans and press, but the game was also criticized for having too much talk and not enough action, so to speak. Less than 16 months later, Konami addressed those concerns by giving Snake's comeback a little more substance. This is the 2003 re-release of Metal Gear Solid 2, this time appropriately subtitled Substance. Now, in terms of the core game, Substance is virtually identical to Sons of Liberty. This is Metal Gear Solid 2 after all, so why change a successful campaign? Instead, Konami supplemented that core experience with plenty of extra content. Unlike Sons of Liberty, Substance features 4 kinds of VR missions, similar to those in the original Metal Gear Solid, as well as alternate missions which revisit levels from the main game with different objectives. These extra modes are tremendous additions, injecting addictive, pick-up-and-play gameplay into a title mostly focused on its story-driven campaign. But of course, this is Metal Gear Solid 2, so the game's compelling, story-driven campaign is still the backbone of Substance. Metal Gear Solid 2 relies very heavily on its plot and narrative twists. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but as with its predecessor, story is every bit as much a part of the game as gameplay itself. Metal Gear Solid had an unrivaled cinematic flair, and it was a driving force in the merging of movies and video games. This sequel continues that legacy, only a bit less effectively. Now, make no mistake, Metal Gear Solid 2 tells an engrossing story that's much more ambitious than its predecessors, but it does stumble along the way. In fact, sometimes you get the sense it's a bit too ambitious for its own good. It's a complex story exploring philosophy, political theory, sociology, but the game never quite manages to tie those narrative threads together as convincingly as you'd like. As a result, character development does suffer a bit, and you notice the simpler, more straightforward story of the original Metal Gear Solid was actually a better motivator for the gameplay. This one has a much better story, it just doesn't tell that story quite as well. And yet, that's about the only thing Metal Gear Solid 2 doesn't do better. The tactical espionage gameplay had been refined into something far sharper, and controlling Snake had never been better than it was in this PS2 masterpiece. Once again, we have to send huge thanks to Kevin from California. Kevin sent us the first 3 Metal Gear Solid games for review, which is easily the coolest donation we've ever gotten here at Undertow. So once again, Kevin, thanks a lot, you're the man, but just one question, the box you mailed these games in disappeared overnight. Does it have a tendency of disappearing? You got any thoughts on that? Solid Snake really polished his boots for this return mission. The graphics were a genuine achievement for the PS2 hardware. The story, if flawed in its telling, was at least smart and ambitious, but its most important improvements deal with gameplay. With expanded abilities, improved controls, and stellar level design, sneaking around in the shadows had never been more fun than it was in Metal Gear Solid 2.